see how this goes. Start out the recording with Billy laughing crazily. So we'll see. Maybe we'll go viral.
Y'all didn't hear Sam Alfred. That's good. But I won't repeat.
Yeah. All right, we're gonna get going. If there's stuff being said that we don't want to repeat, then we just need to get going then. So, but anyways, okay. All right. Let me open up in prayer real quick, and then we'll jump right in and get started. Father God, we thank you and praise you. We can be here today and gather and have a good time in your house and just enjoy just being together. And Lord, I just ask now as we go through this chapter of Revelation that you would just make it clear and concise, and everybody would learn something from it. We thank you and praise you. I pray that you be with me and give me the words that you would have me to speak. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, so because I got some people here, they weren't here last week, and I don't think where we left off last week I can get through those and the rest of, and the next thing, chapter 9, all in one class. And I really want to, I don't want to have to rush through chapter 9. So I'm gonna kind of review a little bit for those, and for those that were here, well, might kind of help out a little bit. But we're up to chapter 8. We have made it farther than we made it pre-COVID, so we're getting there. This is good. So in the beginning of chapter 8, we only did the first 5 verses last week, and prior to that, chapter 7, we had 6 of the 7 seals were broken on the scroll, and each one bringing judgments or some activity, not always judgments, but bringing some activity in either heaven or on earth. And so the 7th one is the final seal on the scroll, but it brings a lot of stuff with it. Like there are 7 trumpet blasts that will go with this, and then there's also once the seventh trumpet blast brings 6 or 7, I think 7 bowls of wrath that will come upon the earth, and so it's going to get really interesting here. So, but we see here that in chapter 8, chapter 7, it was talking about the 144,000 witnesses that will go out and proclaim the gospel and try to help as many people find the Lord as possible, and that those were all Jewish believers at that time, or they're Jewish believers. They're not Gentile, but there will be Gentile, regular non-Jewish believers as well that will convert on the earth and stuff like that. So. A lot of these judgments God is going to an extreme measure to try to get people's attention, and that he does exist, and that he does. And we know, as we see in our culture today, that every time something happens, it should be really unexplainable. Somebody comes out with some scientific explanation that, for what it is, even though it's really the hand of God that's doing it. And so, but anyway, so, and a lot of that's going to happen in the last days as well. So, but he breaks, so the 7th seal is broken, and there's silence in heaven. The Bible, pretty well all translations say for half an hour. And now we don't know, we talked about that last week, we don't know if this is a literal half an hour. John looked at his Casio watch that's been working for 3,000 years. Oh, right, he's not here today. He's upstairs. So, but no. But anyways, but yeah, so he obviously didn't have a watch, but he could. They had ways to tell time and stuff. Is it a literal half hour, or is it half hour in the way God counts time? And it could be, So basically, it's just take it as a period of time. It might not specifically be a half hour. Don't get hung up on it. This is one of those things. It really doesn't matter. But it is good to note that there will be silence in heaven, because all the other times that we've seen activity in heaven are seen different between Isaiah and John and I think Ezekiel. They all had visions where they were taken up to heaven to the throne room and stuff like that. And every one of them talked about how much activity there was going on and how much it was praising going on and all singing and praising and all this stuff going on up there. Well, for heaven to go silent is like an important fact. So I kind of related it to, if you're watching a sporting event and you see the player on the field get hurt, usually the whole place becomes quiet because there's concern for that player on the field. And that would be like what this is that this is like, for just a period of time, heaven is going to be completely silent. So, and then 7 angels are given trumpets, and they'll each one will blow the trumpet, and a judgment will come upon the earth, and possibly heaven. There, there might be some effect in heaven as well. Some people think that those are the angels of the churches. They receive letters in the beginning of the book. Most accept that the angels are described to be most accept that the angels are described to be pastors. Most of the people, that's right. That's what I'm trying to say here. It's even typed out. I can't understand my notes sometimes, but never mind handwritten. But when we talked about the angels of the churches, most people believe, and that was kind of the general consensus, that those are considered the pastors of the churches, not actual angels. And so some people do say that they believe they were actual angels, and then these are the same angels, because the rapture's happened, that these same angels are the ones that are given the trumpets to sound. I don't know. That's a stretch for me. So, but anyway, but again, that's not something to get hung up on. It's, the last seal is broken and will contain the trumpets and the judgments, seven bowl judgments, and this will lead up to the fall of Babylon, which will be at the return of Christ. In Babylon, it's called the New Babylon, because obviously Babylon doesn't really exist right now. We don't have a great city of Babylon, but it will. And we talked about how Babylon is in the Iraq region of the world. And so timing of when all this happens is a matter of debate. Some people believe that all this is going to go on in the first part of the tribulation. Other people believe it'll be during the Great Tribulation. Okay, then we moved into verses 3 and 5. Angel mixes incense with the prayers of the saints that are calling for the final return of Jesus and the judgment on those that persecuted them. Talked about if this is the saints that are on earth now, that have received the word, or not, or these are the saints that are in heaven that were talked about in chapter 6, I believe, where they were martyred. They were martyred saints up there. It could be both, or it could be one or the other. So, but he mixes it, places it on the altar, offers it to God, and then which causes, and then it gets thrown down to earth, and it causes thunder, lightning, and an earthquake, really big earthquake. And this is the first of the events that come as an answer to the prayer of the saints. But this is not one of the judgments. This is just something that happens before the judgments start. So now we're going to pick up in verse 6, and these judgments we're going to talk about them all now and see what happens. So 6 and 7. Okay. Then the 7 angels with the 7 trumpets prepared to blow their mighty blasts. The first angel blew his trumpet, and hail and fire mixed with blood were thrown down to the earth. 1/3 of the earth was set on fire, 1/3 of the trees were burned, and the green grass was burned up. Okay, so here we see the first judgment, and this one's going to cause Justin a lot of headache. So, burning up 1/3 of the earth, and all the vegetation is going to be destroyed. Hail, fire, and blood all mixed together. That's not really a pleasant combination, I don't think. So now, most commentators that I read behind on this stuff talked about we need to take this stuff very literally, that these judgments, because they are so descriptive on what takes place on the earth. Now, the means that this happens is up for much debate. We see the end result because, 1/3 of the earth will be set on fire and will be destroyed basically, or pretty close to being destroyed. And that could be, as we talked about, there's speculation that there's gonna be a religion that comes forth and it's gonna have 1/3 of the earth and 1/3 of the population and stuff, and it could be targeting those. Again, that's entirely possible. We don't know for sure, but 1/3 of the earth is going to be harmed in this. And this is all stuff on land too. 1/3 of the land mass will be severely hurt and destroyed. So, and this will cause more famines. It'll cause more because we already see famine going on in the first judgments and stuff. But this will cause more if all the vegetation and trees and everything, grass and everything burns up. Then it's going to cause a lot of issues. But it could be done by meteors falling to the earth. It could be caused by weapons of mass destruction that John saw, but really didn't know how to articulate because he's never seen nuclear missiles explode. So it could be that. The means of how this happens, we're not told. Again, they'll try to explain it away as some sort of scientific, or if it is weapons of mass destruction, then we know, okay, this crazy over here launched this or whatever. I mean, who knows? So it's, you just don't know. And so, it's no matter how it's caused, it'll bring destruction on the earth and will hurt a great many people and kill a great many people. We're not told how many people die in these judgments, but we do know that there will be a lot. And the results of it will be a lot. So, because again, starvation and famine will continue to go forth because you're destroying 1/3 of the land will be severely harmed. So, any questions or comments or thoughts about this one? This trumpet blast?
What's the significance about hell and fire mixed with blood is hurled down?
Again, that's it. He's trying to describe what he's seeing, and it may actually be hail and fire and blood all mixed together, or he could be witnessing like a meteorite or something that comes in and causes destruction, and he might not know how to articulate, or like I say, weapon of mass destruction or some sort of it could be a biological weapon that's launched or whatever that could harm and destroy and stuff like that. So he's trying to articulate and to write down what he is seeing, but a lot of what he's seeing is far beyond the first century, and so that's why. And so probably apparently the best he could do to describe it was the hail and fire and blood, combination. So that would be the significance of that, and it also to show that it's going to be something really powerful. So okay.
Well, I was basically gonna ask the same thing with that
Okay.
blood. Are we talking, maybe the destruction of life, which would be blood,
Mhm.
that is the result of this hail and this fire? I mean,
Probably so. Yeah.
probably
Yeah.
the death of humans.
Oh yeah, and the livestock and all the other stuff too, because I mean, there's going to be,
I interpret it a
animals and
little bit
everything
different.
too.
I'm thinking it more of biological,
Mhm.
people bleeding out, they're seeing this. The
Yeah.
hail could be small huge meteorite
Mhm.
breaking up and coming down
Right.
and then catching everything on fire a
Right.
different way. I mean,
Yeah.
that would be, because like you say, he's not sure if it's hail or rock. I mean, it's.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Exactly. So he's seeing things that I'm sure frightened him to no end, because these events, us reading about them, are could be frightening if we don't take rest and assurance that we know how it's all going to end. And he had that too, but still, I mean, it's yeah. So it could be, like you say, it could be the result of biological weapons, and that would be a weapon of mass destruction and nuclear and stuff like that. You know, I don't know the nuclear weapon so much on this one. I think the next one we would see might be considered more nuclear weapon kind of description, but again, biological weapons, we have those now that, you know, people can launch and whatever. People can, you know, accidentally release a virus from China that just screws up the whole world. I mean, you know, so, but.
But you can't call it Chinese.
I know, right, yeah, we're not. It's just it's where it originated from, but, you know, so. But anyway, so yeah, so, but, any other questions or comments about this first trumpet blast? Gonna have a major impact, we know that, so. Alright, so let's move on to the next one. Verses 8 and 9. Then the second angel blew his trumpet, and a great mountain of fire was thrown into the sea. 1/3 of the water in the sea became blood, and 1/3 of all things living in the sea died, and 1/3 of the ships on the sea were destroyed. Right? Anybody remember a time where bodies of water turned to blood because of a judgment from God? Maybe in the Old Testament somewhere?
No,
Yeah.
I'm not,
Moses.
Moses.
Well, yeah.
Wrong.
I'm concerned about you, Billy. You're going right to wine. I don't understand. So,
No, I don't drink wine.
oh, well, okay.
I was just thinking, and then I thought about Moses, and he said it, so.
Right, exactly. The plagues that came upon Egypt, it turned the river into blood and killed the fish and all that stuff. So a lot of these trumpet blasts are going to be kind of like a revisiting of what we saw in Genesis in the Old Testament of the 7 plagues. There's a lot of differences, but there are some that are very similar to them. Okay.
Would that be something like a red tide? Being
Probably.
a red tide with the water's got the red tone to it, and
Yeah.
it kills the oxygen, and the fish just die.
Yeah, it could be massive that.
And
So
when I think of, the mountains burning, I think of volcanoes.
right,
That's the first thing that comes in my mind.
and
is
that's
volcanoes.
that was the next thing out of my mouth. So thank you. Yes, volcanoes. So that's what a lot of people believe. That, and you know, he says that he sees it coming down and it's on fire or whatever. Well, again, in his mind, he's trying to describe this, and we don't know if he's ever seen a volcano go off before, and so could very well be that's how it could be a volcano here on the earth, and it just is erupting and blowing all that stuff out into the ocean. And we see from a lot of these, if they're near, you know, like the one in Hawaii that erupted a few years ago, it just
It's
goes
still-
right to the ocean.
It's still erupting. We've been on the cruise ship, and you go by and you see the lava going in and making the one island bigger.
Right. Yeah. There you go. So exactly. But yeah. So and it could be, you know, it could be that. And again, volcano is probably the most likely way that it'll happen. But also could be, you know, something really, really big that he kind of sees coming down on fire from heaven. That could be more of another weapon of mass destruction kind of thing.
That or a huge meteorite,
Yeah, that too. Huge meteorite could, you know.
because
So-
coming into the atmosphere, it's going to look like a trail
Yeah.
of fire behind it.
Oh yeah,
Around.
exactly. So.
That was their thing.
The first one affected 1/3 of the land. Now this one affects 1/3 of the sea, and the creatures in the ocean will die, and it'll destroy 1/3 of the ships. Now that to me is kind of interesting. That's why more along the lines of volcano, because you know, or whatever, because it's gonna destroy the ships. Now we didn't hear about any ships being destroyed in Genesis during that time, but you know, but it did tell, you know, so, but 1/3 of the ship, so they're probably going to catch fire and end up sinking and
Or
stuff
if
like
it's a
that.
volcano, then you end up with a 60-foot tsunami.
Yeah.
And that's going to destroy
Or
ships.
that too, exactly. There's so many ways it could happen. So, but like I say, it's, you know, the first one affected 1/3 of the land. Now this one affects 1/3 of the sea. And so now this is the salt water. This is the oceans. This is the sea. Okay. And the next one is going to affect fresh water, rivers, and the other stuff. All right, so let's look at that. Then the third angel blew his trumpet, and this is verse 10. And a great star fell from heaven, burning like a torch. It fell on 1/3 of the rivers and on the springs of water. The name of the star was bitterness. It made 1/3 of the water bitter, and people died from drinking the bitter water. Okay? So here we see, this one accurately describes. This one says it's a star coming down to Earth, a meteorite, something like that. Could be comet. It, gets out of orbit or whatever and comes down, and and stuff like that. But it says that the name of the star is bitterness, and the Greek word is wormwood. Some of your translations may have wormwood in there. And so it's basically this one's gonna affect the fresh water. It's gonna, turn 1/3 of the water to be undrinkable. It's gonna make it bitter. Okay? And so we're gonna see, so now, like I said, meteor, comet, asteroid, or other celestial being in the sky, and no matter what it is, the drinking water is going to be affected by 1/3 on the earth. Okay. Now, some people take this symbolically as Satan and 1/3 of the angels falling from heaven at this point. I don't know. We're told about the great war in heaven between the angelic beings in chapter 12. But some people do, in commentaries, reference that they believe that this is what it is, because Satan is I can't think of it, it's not in my notes, but Satan was referenced as a star in the celestial beings at some point, and so that's why they think that, and I'll look that up for next week, but that's why they think that it's him falling to the earth. Turning the water and them landing in the fresh water or turning into the sea, turning it bitter and stuff. It's why I think, I don't know. I don't understand the symbolism of the result of Satan and the angels being thrown down to earth if it's just going to turn the water bitter. To me, it seems like there would be a lot more consequences of it if that was the case. But again, that's a possibility that's out there. Some people believe that. I don't know. I have a heart. That's one it's a far reach for me. So, I think, because we are getting such specific results that it's talking about, I don't know how much of this you want to take symbolically. So, other than the means of it getting done. So, or one other possibility of how the water turns to bitter is that it could be some sort of man-made pollution coming out of the sky. What happens if the International Space Station fails? Could it possibly fall to Earth? Probably, but who knows? I don't know. I'm not one of them scientific guys that knows all that stuff. So, but that could be a possibility, or they have something similar to that. So we know satellites fall out of orbit and fall to the Earth. If they malfunction or whatever and stuff, and they usually burn up on entry. So if you got something like the space station up there, it's really, really big and huge. That could be, and that could be explained. That could also explain the mountain in the Last Judgment that he saw coming down from the sky too, is the space station. So, but questions or comments about any of these so far? All right. So we've tore up the earth pretty good. 1/3 of the land, 1/3 of the sea, 1/3 of the fresh water. Now we don't know if this is all in the same region of the earth or if this is all over the earth. It doesn't specifically say. This may be a targeted thing on 1/3 of the earth where, the most wicked people are, stuff like that, Sodom and Gomorrah kind of thing. we don't know. So we're not sure if it's just kind of randomly throughout the world. So, okay. Verse 12. Then the fourth angel blew his trumpet, and 1/3 of the sun was struck, and 1/3 of the moon, and 1/3 of the stars, and they became dark. And 1/3 of the day was dark, and also 1/3 of the night, and also 1/3 of the night. Okay? Alright, so this one's gonna be easy for scientists to explain because they're just gonna say it was an unforeseen eclipse. We didn't know this was gonna happen because we goofed. But it's an eclipse. And very well could be. But usually with an eclipse, one of them's brighter, one of them is visible more than the other one. This is talking either the sun's more visible or the moon's blocking the sun or whatever and stuff, and you can see, most of it. But this is talking about 1/3 of the day being dark, and it's gonna lose, the sun's gonna lose 1/3 of its power, the moon's gonna, and when you lose 1/3 of the sun's power, then consequently, because the moon reflects the sun's light, 1/3 of the sun's gonna be, but 1/3 of the stars also with it are gonna go dark. And so, doesn't say they're gonna fall to the earth, it's just gonna be just dark, done. So that'd be a lot, and so be a lot less light, a lot less warmth, and the tides are all gonna be messed up. So because we know that the moon and the sun and all that stuff helps to control our tides with the orbiting of the earth around the sun and all that stuff. And he said it's going to mess up that too. So tsunamis and other things could happen, all that stuff. And then I just kind of threw this in here because I thought it was kind of funny at that point. 1/3 of our gadgets we're making now that run on solar power is not going to work. So
Say that again?
1/3 of the gadgets we're making that run on solar power are not going to work because the sun's going to be a third darker. So.
Well, instead of an 8 kW, I'll have a 6 kW, that's system.
Right, exactly. So, but anyway, so okay, all right. So there's 4 judgments, the first 4 of the 7. Okay. Now in verse 13, we get a bit of a warning. It says, "Then I looked and I heard a single eagle crying loudly as it flew through the air. Terror, terror, terror to all who belong to this world because of what will happen when the last 3 angels blow their trumpets." Okay? First of all, let me just start out saying that this eagle that it's speaking of is not America. Don't get confused by that because our symbol is an eagle and other stuff. And believe me, there is people out there saying that.
And my Bible says angel,
Okay.
1 and 3.
All right. We're good. Yeah. Like I say, I'm working out of the New Living, and it's there's definitely some differences in translation. But for an eagle an angel is probably a better, more accurate description of it. And stuff, but another angel, but this does say, mine says single eagle crying loudly. But the fact that we're getting a warning, woe to the earth, woe to the people that belong to the world, because what's going to happen is going to be really, really bad, when we've already seen a whole lot of really, really bad stuff, should really kind of frighten the mess out of everybody. Okay? But yeah, an angel announces that the last judgment, that the next 4 are or the last 3 are going to be really bad. He's saying you better be ready, and you better repent, because it does specifically say, terror, terror, terror to all who belong to this world, because of what will happen when the last 3 angels blow their trumpets. Now, all who belong to the world is speaking of non-believers. So, all of these judgments that have come upon the earth and everything, that come upon 1/3 of the earth, or 1/3 of the celestial beings, and stuff like that. So, but again, it could be, we've talked about that could be a third of the world that's totally blocked off, that wants nothing to do with God, and or totally an enemy of God, and that could be what it's targeting. But we do see, based on what he's saying here, is that the last three trumpet blasts that bring in, two of them we talk in chapter 9 about the first and the second terror. But they bring massive things coming. It's going to affect the non-believers more than it is going to be the believers that are on earth. We know that the 144,000 are protected or sealed by God, by the angel, and then all those that they witness to and that accept God and follow God and get into that relationship with God. There's arguments back and forth about whether they'll be sealed and protected. We don't know for sure. It's kind of back and forth. The Bible doesn't specifically state that they're sealed with that seal. It says that those 144,000 are protected. That's what the Bible clearly states. But you can go on to say that the ones that they help come to Christ and come to saving faith might be protected as well, but it's not clear that it's in here. Other than when we see these next judgments coming, that those are going to affect the non-believers in a more powerful way. They may affect believers, but they're going to be in a more powerful way affecting the non-believers. These terrors and things like that are coming. So, be good to it'll be good to know God at that point, and to hopefully not have to be affected by that. And again, as we kind of touched on with the rapture or whatever, we don't know which tribulation or which form of the rapture. Oh yeah, I didn't click this. I'm sorry. There you go. We just don't know. But for them to say it's going to be a whole lot worse, it's going to be bad. I totally lost my train of thought. I know that didn't connect, but it's all right. Been having a lot of thought derailments lately. So, but finish up by saying that the angel announcing, angel, eagle, whatever you want to say, announcing the terrors belong on the earth, that are coming to the earth, to those that belong to the world, is basically like what Jesus was telling the disciples in Matthew 24, or towards the end of Matthew 24. He talks about the events that will be happening in the last days. And he says that it'll be similar to, when they start, it'll be similar to the birthing pains of a mother giving birth, and that they'll come like that, and it'll happen like that. And basically he tells the disciples that you don't want to be here for it. So again, rapture, thinking about, that's where I was, about the rapture, the three different ones, before all tribulation happens, mid-tribulation, where after the 3.5 years of relatively good on the earth, the church gets raptured out before all this bad stuff really starts to happen, great tribulation. And then we also have the post-tribulation, where it says that the rapture will happen right before Christ comes back, and we'll be caught up in the air and then brought back with him as his army to conquer the earth, as his followers and army to conquer the earth and that stuff. So whichever way your belief falls on that, again, it's not a salvation issue. It's not worth debating, really. But we may end up being here for it. If we're the post-trib, then we may end up, the rapture happens post-trib, then we'll be here for all this stuff to happen. So we don't know. We just hope for the best. Hope for it's a pre-trib rapture, and expect the worst. Expect that it could be a post-trib rapture, and that we might be here through all of this. So, questions and thoughts about chapter 8? Okay. Anybody learn anything today?
Yeah.
Okay. You're not trying to figure out new ways to torture Sammy, are you? Okay, good.
No, I'm just,